Hi, welcome to Live Kabbalah, welcome to Tzfat and to Daily Zohar. So this week's portion is called Vayechi, and it's actually the only portion in the entire Bible, entire Torah, that is called parsha stuma, that is juxtaposed, that is connected one to the other, where the two portions actually don't have a space. The portion before Vayigash and Vayechi are connected one to the other. So on that, the Zohar, and of course all commentators speak about, but much of the commentary is actually based on what the Zohar speaks about. And in the book of the Zohar, page 217, Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. Amai parshata dastima. Why is this parsha closed? It's not open, doesn't have a space. Rabbi Yaakov says, B'shaita demit Yaakov, that at the time that Jacob died, histimu einehon de Yisrael. So the eyes of the nation of Israel became closed. So therefore, the parsha is called closed, and it's closed one with the other because of the eyes, because of the ability to see and the ability to be enlightened by Jacob was no longer with them. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Dechdei nachatu legaluta v'ishtabidu behon. It is because when Jacob died, then the Jewish people descended into Egypt and they began the subjugation of slavery. Rabbi Shimon Amar, Rabbi Shimon says, Maktiv le'ela. What does it say beforehand? It says, Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim. It says that Israel, and this is of course the higher name for Jacob, dwelled in the land of Egypt, be'eretz Goshen, specifically in Goshen, in the portion of Goshen, which was a secluded place within Egypt, Vayeachazu ba. And his children, the tribes, and all the descendants, which were much more than 70 by now, actually flourished within that place. Vayifru vayirbu ma'od. And they had many children, and they were very plentiful. Uchtiven, and then it says Vayechi Yaakov. And then afterwards, in this portion, it connects and it says that Jacob lived. It is not possible to separate between the portion which speaks about how the descendants of Jacob lived in Goshen and they were so fruitful and multiplied, and what came afterwards. Because just like over there, what happened is that the Jewish people lived with in the way of the royalty of kings. So too Yaakov found himself living just a life of delicacies and a life of pleasure, unlike he was used to all of his life. Therefore, these two portions, these two parshas, cannot be separated one from the other. And therefore it says over here that Yaakov lived Vayechi, because it's considered for him good life, the best life. Because all the days of his life, Jacob is not referred to as living, as Vayechi, as having life, because all the days of Jacob's life were in pain. And during the life of Jacob, the Torah says, Lo shalavti, I was not calm, I didn't have peace of mind, V'lo shakatiti, and I wasn't quiet from all my pain and all my worries from Esav, etc., and not from the house of Lavan, V'lo nachati, and I wasn't able to rest. I wasn't able to rest from what occurred with Dinah and Shechem, Vayavo Roges, and then later on I had anger, and I had real hardships come about, which is basically referring to Joseph. Aval batar denachat lemitzrayim, but after Jacob went to Egypt, Ikri Vayechi, then it says Vayechi, that he lived. Chama livrei malka, because he saw his son, who was a king. And not only he was a king, but he remained a tzaddik, he remained a righteous son. And actually Joseph is the only one that's called Yosef HaTzadik. So Chama lechol benui zakain tzaddikin. And then he saw all of his children, that they remained tzaddikim one after one, each one of the tribes. V'chulu b'tanugi v'tafnuki alma. And they were actually living a life of bliss, a life of pleasure, of delights. And of course, this doesn't refer just to the physical aspects, that they ate and they drank and they had the good life in Goshen, but they were able to actually live that life in connection with the spiritual life. And he is sitting amongst his family, amongst his children, that like a good wine that is sitting and that is aging. So Yaakov just became better and better, and he was coming to a higher levels of spirituality and of what we call nachas and of delight. And on this, the portion says that Jacob lived. And that's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai tells us, that's why the Torah portion is sealed, because it goes hand in hand with what was spoken about beforehand. That Jacob's children lived in the land of Egypt, and then right afterwards it says Vayechi, because it's the only time that Yaakov was able to actually properly live in Egypt, and not just live in Egypt. It's the only time in his life that he was able to properly live and enjoy his life. Now it's interesting that specifically in Egypt, after Jacob lived the majority of his life in the land of Israel, but nevertheless, it doesn't say about that Vayechi. Specifically in Egypt, which is called Erva Sa'aretz, it's called like the darkness of the land. Over there, Jacob was able to reach these levels. So it's explained in the books of Chassidut, by the Alter Rebbe. He explains that the ability for Jacob to live in Egypt specifically came from the part of the fact that Egypt was a dark place, and the fact that Jacob was able to live in Egypt and bring light in the dark place like that added to the life of Jacob. So what we could extract from this in our lives is that when we are in difficult circumstances, obviously we're coming and we're going and we don't have peace of mind. But when we're able to transform those situations, and Jacob was able to finally transform all those situations in Egypt, and on that it says specifically Vayechi over there, and those 17 years of his life were able to be transformed into the best years of his life, and specifically in the land of Egypt. So too, when we have the ability to transform darkness into light, like Rabbi Shimon says in the Zohar, that somebody that has the ability to transform darkness into light has a portion in the world to come, in the place of truth. So too, when we're able to do that, we're able to transform it, and that's how we have true life and to properly Vayechi.